I, 29M, need to get this off my chest as it's been eating away at me for months. My girlfriend Kylie, 30F, and I have been together for 3 years after meeting through mutual friends at a house party. We clicked instantly over our shared love of indie films and travel. She's intelligent, ambitious, and honestly way out of my league, the kind of woman who turns heads whenever she walks into a room. We moved in together last year and everything was perfect until about 2 months ago. Kylie was working as a marketing manager at a tech startup before they had massive layoffs in January. She was devastated as she loved her job and had just been promoted. The job market has been brutal, and after 3 months of rejections, she was starting to lose hope. That's when this recruiter reached out about an executive assistant position with a salary that seemed too good to be true, $180,000 plus bonuses and full benefits. The CEO, let's call him James, runs several successful companies and is apparently worth close to $1 billion. He needed someone to manage his schedule, travel arrangements, and personal affairs. The recruiter told Kylie she'd be perfect for the role because of her organizational skills and polished presence. I was excited for her at first. It seemed like a great opportunity to network and potentially transition back into marketing later. Red flags started appearing during her first interview. James asked her if she was single right off the bat, which seemed inappropriate. Kylie told me she said yes because she assumed he meant married. We've discussed marriage but aren't engaged yet. His response was perfect with this smile that she described as charming but intense. He then spent an hour telling her about his jet-setting lifestyle, regular trips to London, Paris, Dubai, Tokyo, and how his assistant needs to be available to travel with him extensively, sometimes for weeks at a time. Kylie would need to relocate to NYC while I'm stuck in Chicago for at least another year due to my contract at the architecture firm where I work. She'd only be able to come back on weekends. When she brought this up, James casually mentioned he'd cover a luxury apartment in Manhattan and all living expenses. The whole setup started feeling more like a sugar daddy arrangement than a professional job. I did some digging and discovered James has quite a reputation. He's been divorced twice, both times leaving his wives for much younger women. His current girlfriend, or maybe ex now, it's unclear, is 32 and used to be his assistant before getting promoted to run one of his smaller companies. I found an article from 2 years ago where she gushed about how James mentored her to success after plucking her from an entry-level position. The more I learn, the more concerned I get. During Kylie's first week, James took her shopping on the company card with a $10,000 limit because her current wardrobe wasn't sophisticated enough for his world. He bought her all new tech, latest iPhone, iPad, MacBook, AirPods, claiming she needed to be reachable 24/7. She came home excited about all the gifts but something felt off about a boss lavishing an employee with expensive personal items. Last week was their first business trip to London. Kylie's communication became sporadic, just quick texts saying she was swamped with work events. When I asked about calling, she said the time difference made it difficult. But I noticed she was posting Instagram stories at fancy restaurants and clubs, always with James somewhere in the frame. In one photo, they were having drinks at some rooftop bar at midnight London time, hardly a business meeting. She came back acting different, distant and distracted. Now all she talks about is James, how brilliant he is, how he built his empire from nothing, how much she's learning from him. She even changed her hairstyle because he mentioned liking long straight hair instead of her natural curls. Yesterday I noticed she changed her relationship status on Facebook to hidden and archived several recent photos of us. When I tried to discuss my concerns, Kylie got extremely defensive. She accused me of trying to hold her back because I'm jealous of her success. She said I should be grateful she found such an amazing opportunity instead of bringing negative energy. This isn't like her at all. She's usually very understanding and open to communication. The final straw came tonight. Kylie left her iPad unlocked on the coffee table while she was in the shower. A WhatsApp notification popped up from James saying you looked absolutely stunning in that new dress today. Can't wait for our private dinner in Paris next week. That little restaurant I told you about is so romantic. She replied with several heart emojis and can't wait. You always know the best spots. I know snooping was wrong but I couldn't help myself. I scrolled up slightly and saw dozens of similar flirty messages. He constantly compliments her appearance and she responds enthusiastically. There was even a message about how her youth and beauty bring such energy to the office. Through some LinkedIn research, I discovered his last 3 assistants were all attractive women between 27 to 32 who mysteriously left after 6 to 8 months with huge severance packages. Each one later ended up in cushy jobs at companies connected to James. It feels like he's running some kind of high-end escort service disguised as executive assistant positions. I love Kylie deeply and thought we would get married someday. She's always been ambitious but also ethical and genuine. Now I barely recognize her. The way she hangs on James' every word and defends him so aggressively makes me feel like I'm losing her to some weird cult of luxury and power. Am I overreacting here? Should I confront her about the messages? Part of me wants to anonymously contact James' girlfriend/ex and find out what really happened with her. My friends say I should just end it now before things get worse, but walking away from a 3-year relationship isn't that simple. Any advice would be appreciated, especially from anyone who's dealt with a similar situation. Update 1. Thank you everyone for the support and advice on my last post. The overwhelming consensus was that I needed to confront Kylie about the messages, and a lot has happened since then that I need to get off my chest. After reading your comments, I decided to have a serious conversation with Kylie when she returned from her latest business trip to Dubai. I waited until we had a quiet evening at home. I started by expressing how much I care about her and how our relationship seemed to be changing since she took this job. Then I brought up the WhatsApp messages I saw. Kylie's reaction was explosive. Her face went completely red and she started yelling about how I violated her privacy. She said checking her messages was controlling and toxic behavior. When I brought up the flirty nature of their exchanges, she claimed I was misinterpreting everything. According to her, James is just naturally charming and that's how people communicate in the corporate world. She said I clearly don't understand high-level business relationships because I'm stuck in my small-time architecture job. The argument got worse when I mentioned the dress comment and the romantic dinner plans. Kylie said I was twisting things and being paranoid. She claimed the restaurant was just a famous Michelin-starred place James wanted to introduce her to, and the heart emojis were just being friendly. When I asked why she changed her relationship status on Facebook, she said it was for professional privacy since potential business contacts might look her up. The final straw came when I brought up his history with previous assistants. Kylie completely lost it. She grabbed some clothes and said she needed space, claiming she was going to stay with her friend Katie. She said she couldn't be with someone who didn't support her career growth and was trying to sabotage her success out of jealousy. The next day, I got a surprising message from Katie. She wanted to meet for coffee because there were things I needed to know. When we met, Katie revealed that Kylie never came to her place at all. In fact, Kylie had been confiding in Katie about James for weeks, but the reality was very different from what she told me. According to Katie, Kylie described James as the most amazing man she'd ever met. He's been taking her to exclusive members-only clubs, buying her designer clothes, and telling her she's special and different from all his other assistants. Kylie told Katie that James makes her feel alive and appreciated in ways I never did. She bragged about how he lets her use his credit cards freely and even hinted that he promised to help her start her own company someday. Katie showed me recent texts from Kylie where she gushed about James kissing her in the elevator after a late night at the office. Kylie wrote that it was magical and she'd never felt such chemistry with anyone. She told Katie she feels guilty about our relationship but thinks she and James might have a real connection. The bombshell came later that day. James' recent ex-girlfriend, the former assistant, reached out to me on Instagram. Apparently, someone shared my Reddit post in a Facebook group for executive assistants, and she recognized the situation immediately. Her name is Rachel, and she was James' assistant 3 years ago before becoming his girlfriend. Rachel's story was chilling. James followed the exact same pattern with her: expensive gifts, romantic dinners, late-night texts, business trips that turned intimate. She said he presents himself as a mentor figure at first, making his assistants feel special and valued. Then he gradually pushes boundaries until the relationship becomes romantic. She warned me that he's already booked his signature move, a business trip to a luxury resort in the Maldives. That's where things turned physical with her and at least 2 other assistants before her. When I checked Kylie's work calendar that I still had access to from when she shared it with me, I found it, a week-long trip to the Maldives scheduled for next month. The resort costs $5,000 per night. Kylie finally came home yesterday to get more clothes. I confronted her with everything I learned. She broke down and admitted James kissed her in London and they've been texting constantly, but she swears nothing else has happened physically. She said she's confused about her feelings and needs time to figure things out. I told her she needs to make a choice, either end things with James completely or we're done. She looked at me with tears in her eyes and said she can't give up this opportunity. She packed 2 suitcases and left. Her friend later told me she checked into the Four Seasons Hotel downtown, on James' corporate card of course. I'm angry, heartbroken, and feel like an idiot. The signs were all there but I didn't want to believe someone I've loved and trusted for 3 years could change so dramatically in just 2 months. Rachel warned me that Kylie is just the latest in a long line of women James has seduced and eventually discarded. She said he gets bored once the chase is over and starts looking for his next conquest within months. I haven't decided what to do next. Part of me wants to expose James to his board of directors or the media, but Rachel said he has incredible lawyers and makes all his assistants sign ironclad NDAs. For now, I'm just trying to process everything while Kylie lives out her luxury fantasy with her billionaire boss. I'll update again if anything significant happens, but right now I just needed to get this off my chest. I appreciate all the support from this community. Update 2: the situation has gotten much worse than I ever imagined. Last week while I was at work, Kylie came to our apartment with movers and took all her things. She left a letter on the kitchen counter saying she's accepting a promotion to be James' chief of staff in NYC with a $300,000 salary plus equity in his company. She wrote that she's sorry for hurting me but she can't pass up this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What Kylie doesn't know is that over the past month, I've been contacted by 5 of James' former employees, not just assistants. After my last update went viral in several Facebook groups, they found me through mutual connections. Their stories painted a disturbing pattern that goes beyond what I initially suspected. Two former assistants, Michelle and Jessica, shared nearly identical experiences from 2019 and 2021. James pursued them aggressively, moved them to NYC, set them up in luxury apartments in the same building Kylie is moving to, and showered them with gifts and promises of future business partnerships. Both women said he was incredibly controlling. He tracked their locations through their company phones, demanded they be available 24/7, and isolated them from friends and family. The worst part came when they tried to leave. Jessica showed me emails where James threatened to blacklist her in their industry and ruin her career unless she signed an extensive NDA. He claimed he had compromising photos from their trips together. Michelle said when she started dating someone else, James suddenly accused her of stealing company property and threatened legal action. Both women were terrified into silence by his legal team and power in the business world. A former executive at one of his companies told me James has been doing this for over a decade. He picks vulnerable women, usually right after career setbacks or financial struggles, and presents himself as their savior. He uses his money and influence to create this fantasy world that's hard to walk away from, then discards them when he gets bored. The company's HR department has buried at least 7 harassment complaints. The most disturbing story came from his ex-girlfriend Rachel, who's been messaging me regularly. She said the Maldives trip Kylie is about to take follows his exact playbook. He books an isolated villa, plies his target with expensive wine, then starts pushing physical boundaries under the guise of working late. Rachel said he filmed their encounters without her knowledge and later used those recordings to ensure her silence when she threatened to go public about his behavior. I sent all this evidence to Kylie in a detailed email, screenshots, testimonies, documentation of the NDAs and threats. Her response was heartbreaking. She accused me of coordinating with bitter ex-employees to sabotage her happiness. She said I'm trying to control her because I'm jealous that she's finally successful. According to her, these women are just angry they couldn't cut it in James' world. Her friends tell me she's completely changed. Her Instagram is now full of designer clothes, champagne brunches, and private jet trips, always with James lurking in the background. She deleted every trace of our relationship online and even blocked some of her old friends who expressed concern. Katie tried to talk sense into her, but Kylie accused her of being jealous too. The final piece of this puzzle came yesterday. James' current receptionist, a 26-year-old named Ashley, reached out to me through LinkedIn. She said he's already setting up the next cycle. He's been inviting her to private lunches, sending her expensive gifts, and promising to mentor her to success, the exact same lines he used on Kylie and the others. Meanwhile, I've heard from office sources that he's been spending less time with Kylie and criticizing her work more frequently. I considered warning Ashley, but Michelle and Jessica advised against it. They said James' victims have to realize the truth themselves. Outside warnings just make them defensive and more isolated. They also warned me that his legal team aggressively pursues anyone who tries to interfere with his personal matters. I'm sharing this update partly as a warning to others, but also because writing it helps me process everything. The woman I loved and trusted for 3 years has become someone I don't recognize, chasing a fantasy that will eventually crumble. The worst part is knowing I can't do anything to stop it. I've started therapy and am focusing on healing. Living in our apartment without Kylie is tough, but I'm taking it day by day. I'll post another update if anything significant happens, especially since the ugly truth about James usually reveals itself within 3 to 4 months of these promotions. Update 3: This will be my final update. Last night around 2 a.m., Kylie called me crying. Just as Rachel and the others predicted, James has moved on to his next target. Over the past few weeks, he's been gradually pushing Kylie aside, excluding her from important meetings, criticizing her work publicly, and spending more time with Ashley, the receptionist I mentioned in my last update. Kylie told me James completely changed after their Maldives trip. He became cold and distant, started nitpicking everything she did, and began introducing her as just an assistant after promising her the chief of staff title. The final blow came yesterday when she discovered he booked a business trip to Paris with Ashley, at the same hotel and restaurant he first took Kylie to. When Kylie confronted him about Ashley, he threatened to terminate her contract for inappropriate behavior. He reminded her of the NDA she signed and mentioned having evidence of her misconduct that could ruin her career. She finally understood what the other women meant about his threats and intimidation. Kylie asked if she could come home. She said she made the biggest mistake of her life and realizes now that everything I warned her about was true. She's scared because James has photos and videos from their trips together that could damage her reputation. Her dream job has turned into a nightmare, and she's stuck in an expensive Manhattan apartment she can't afford once he cuts her off. I listened to her cry for almost an hour. 3 months ago, I would have done anything to get her back. But now, after everything that's happened, I felt nothing but pity. I told her she couldn't come home. The trust is completely shattered, and I refuse to be anyone's backup plan. She made her choice when she threw away our 3-year relationship for a fantasy lifestyle with a predator. The other women were right. Kylie had to learn the hard way. No amount of warnings could have stopped her from falling into James' trap because she wanted to believe in the fairy tale. Now she's joining the growing list of women bound by NDAs and fear of career suicide. I'm actually grateful for how everything turned out. This experience showed me I deserve someone who values loyalty and genuine connection over status and luxury. My company is opening a new office in Austin, and I accepted a transfer starting next month. A fresh start in a new city is exactly what I need. Katie told me Kylie's been reaching out to all her old friends, trying to rebuild the bridges she burned. Most of them, like me, have moved on. She's learning the hard way that designer clothes and luxury trips are poor substitutes for real relationships. As for James, he's already rewriting history. Ashley has been promoted to executive assistant to the CEO, the same title Kylie had 4 months ago. His pattern continues while Kylie joins the silent group of women who traded their dignity for a brief taste of billion-dollar luxury. To those who might find themselves in a similar situation, trust your gut. I knew something was wrong from the beginning but doubted myself because I wanted to be supportive. Never ignore red flags just because you love someone. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let them face the consequences of their choices. Thank you all for the support throughout this journey. Moving forward, I'll be focusing on my new life in Austin and leaving this chapter firmly in the past. Some lessons have to be learned the hard way, and Kylie will have to learn to live with her choices just like I've learned to live without her.